Mr. Sanjay Bhuckory, I know you said I should be calling you Sanjay. I get used to calling you Sanjay for other podcasts, but thank you very much for joining me today.
The pleasure is mine, Jemma.
You have been a guest on a different podcast before, but hopefully you get to speak to the audience of my generation. Can I start by asking you to maybe go back to your childhood, your schooling? What got you to gravitate towards law to start with?
Well, I grew up in a family where we had two very distinct branches. One was law and the other one was medicine.
Medicine, okay.
So on the side of my mother, for instance, I had on the legal side my uncle Sir Satkamboulel, who already in his days had studied at the London School of Economics, the LSE, as you know, and had therefore set the scene. And then I had two elder cousins, Vinod and Prakash Boulel, who went to study at Balliol College, Oxford. And then another cousin again, Anil Gayan, who studied again at the LSE, who studied law. So the standard was set.
Right.
And on this side, I had quite a few cousins having done medicine. Vijay Boulel, Mitradev Boulel. And Mitradev Boulel was, and still is, obviously a medical practitioner. He is one of the few Mauritians who had attained a very high standard in terms not only of medicine, but also in terms of research. He was part of the team that developed Viagra and is well known for that. So he studied at the University of Bristol. So if you wish, ever since I was at primary school, we were told that, look, you have to aim as high as that. Imagine. So it was not just a question of getting through the junior scholarship, as you know, la bourse, la petite bourse. It was a question of ranking amongst the best. If you ranked any lesser than, let's say, 100 or so, you were not good enough.
Okay.
So that was a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it put kind of bar for you to achieve, but on the other hand, it was undue pressure also.
Can you imagine?
So this was how I grew up, because I'm the youngest one amongst all the cousins. I mean, I'm talking my mother's side.
Sure.
Yeah. And so when I joined the Royal College Portrait, I happened to have come out second for the Petite Bourse, for the junior scholarship. So I was, I was validated.
Yeah, that's very humble of you. That's more than an achievement.
I was validated by the, if I may say, the examination family board.
No, you're like, sure, pressure's off.
That's pressureless. But then once I joined Royal College Portrait, I mean, I had my cousins not informed. I was in Form 1, of course, not informed, but from Form 3 up to HSC, I had cousins in each class. So again, the peer pressure was there. It was an ongoing. So again, SC, thank God I did well, HSC also. And so the time came to decide on the professional path to adopt. And it was hard to decide between, medicine or law. I mean, I should have added that I did sciences, pure sciences for my A-levels, for the HSC, yes. Chemistry, physics, and mathematics. So that opened more doors that, classic science, subjects would have opened. I kind of reasoned out, I said, well, already too many lawyers in the family, as if that had something to do with my choice, and too many doctors, so I'll choose something different.
Like what?
Like engineering.
Okay.
So there was a new course being offered for the first time at Imperial College London, which was structural engineering. I applied for and was offered a seat to study that course because I was told that that was the future, really. And from what I see now, indeed, that was a right prediction. But be that as it may, I was going on about my business, about finishing my studies and so on, because I'd been offered a provisional place at Imperial College. Then I watched a British film. It was a black and white film. And I've been racking my mind all the while to find the title of that film. And just before coming here today, I managed to find it. And how? Thanks to AI, which I couldn't find before, because now one of the search tools, enables AI also. So I just put...
You type in the description.
And the description was rather simple. It was a black and white British film. It was barrister, female client, and it was psychological thriller, and it was a mind game between the barrister and her client.
Right.
And this was this rapport, between the two, which in fact was the central theme of the film.
Right.
And that film moved me so much so that I changed my mind. I said, no, I'm going to do law.
Wow. So that was quite a pivotal moment.
Yes, it is black and white. And now I've retraced the origin of the film. It's Witness for the Prosecution. It's a 1957 film with Marlene Dietrich.
Did you watch it ever again?
I did watch it again.
Okay.
I did watch it again, but not making the link. But I must say that it's only before coming here today that I really made the actual physical link.
Wow, okay.
And this is a film that I would recommend to anyone, whether in or out of law.
Right.
So I went to break the news to my father, who is also a barrister and was a barrister. And I could see, tears in his eyes. And he had never influenced me. So I knew that it was what he wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah, he was himself a barrister. He was called to the bar in 1954 and from the Middle Temple. So that was it. And my mother rejoiced because she, unlike my father,
wanted you to pursue law.
Always told me, look, you're cut for that. So I applied to the LSC. I was awarded, a seat at the LSC. So from Satcam to Anil, so next was me. And so I embarked on my journey to the LSC.
And here you are. You were called to the bar of England and Wales and also to the bar, to the Mauritian bar. You've practiced law for so many decades. When you look back at your journey, it seems like this has come full circle from the moment of realizing and watching that movie to making up your mind, and you've been practicing for so many years. What's your perception of, or rather, what do you think is the Mauritian perception of law in Mauritius? The reason I ask this is, and again, this might be a bit of a harsh statement, and you are in the field, so you can correct me, but it does feel like maybe Mauritians are a bit skeptical of the courts in Mauritius, or sometimes, the cliche of the law is somewhat of a cobweb where the big flies get through, the small flies get caught. What do you think has changed over time? What's this perception of law in Mauritius?
Well, I was called to the bar exactly 41 years ago, in August 1984.
We are in August.
Yeah. So that's number one. So, as you said rightly, I have witnessed the transformation in the legal and judicial landscape. Things have changed enormously. I mean, I'm not saying so. I'm not passing a value judgment on that. I'm just saying, and this is a reflection of the societal change also, and the change in the mentality of people, because the law, after all, has to adapt itself to the evolution of society, the law and legislation that is passed also. What I have noticed is that there is less respect for institution now, as was the case before. There is, secondly, degradation in standards. There is also a lack of adherence to ethics. So we have a lot to do. I mean, the older generation to be able to transmit and to be able to actually bring all our savoir-faire and savoir-vivre to the younger generation so that they actually redress that situation. How is that going to be done? There are several ways. I mean, I myself, as an all-standing barrister, I have pupils undergoing their pupillage at my chambers. This is one way to do it. Secondly, you have to actually write, as you said, participate in podcasts like this one. Well, keep disseminating as much as we can. This is our role. Disseminating as much as we can what is expected from the young ones. I mean, not later than yesterday, I published an article on one of my mentors, if I may, Raymond Juniaville Casey, and I recounted my various interactions with him, not only for the cases that we did together, but also for the manner in which he had been transmitted, all his knowledge to me, and which now I feel, I mean, the least I could do is in turn to pass that on.
Right.
So does that answer your question? Or?
It does. Yeah. I think it's interesting that you raised the point, in all honesty, about the reduced adherence to law today. And if I were to put that into context while preparing for our chat, I looked up some of the statistics, and it's, if I were to go by the Corruption Perception Index in 2024, it appears like Mauritius scored 51 out of 100, placing itself as 56 in terms of index, which has been an improvement from years back. But it's not exceptional. And obviously we are a small island. So it's interesting having your perspective in terms of what needs to be done and what has changed over time. And you've been training so many young barristers. You have quite a few people, as you say, under your pupillage. What is some of the best advice you've been giving to these barristers in the making, but also those who have already qualified and been called to the bar?
Yeah. I should also add that I've also been lecturing to the prospective barristers and also to the established barristers. There's what we call the CPD, Continuous Professional Development. So at all these levels. So this is a way where I do make time, because for me, it's a way of giving back to the profession what it has brought to me. Okay. So this is ongoing. What I believe should be done is that the educational system, I mean, the training process should actually ensure that the barristers who follow the courses, they are actually understanding what is happening. Because many a time, they just log in to for instance, I know of many cases where you have online courses, they just log in there and they just mute their microphone and they go about doing something else. Or they go to the lecture and they're not really following. I mean, what can you do as against this if as we say in French, si le cœur n'y est pas, if they're going to switch off? I hate to have to say, but this is what I notice. There is obviously, and I hope that this is a minority. I hope so, but I cannot say, as you said, 51%.
Right.
But I don't know what's the percentage that is not really showing, some keen interest in terms of upholding those standards. But to come back to your previous question, there is one aspect I'd like also to address, that is the perception of the public towards the law and the judicial system. And that, there is a justice for the rich, another justice for the poor.
That's the sad reality of society.
This is not just in Mauritius. Because in any country, you have to pay a price to afford the best lawyers. And the best lawyers would obviously give the best service. And the best service would mean the higher chances of winning your case. This is I'm afraid to use this term, this is the capitalist system at its worst or at its best, depending which way you want to look at it.
Right.
You see, it's a service we are offering. And as you get better, as your time becomes more scarce, there is a higher price to retain your services. See?
Right.
You see, there is another way you could also go about it, is that you could also entrust, like, the legal aid cases to established barristers. I've always told the judicial authorities, like, look, I'm prepared to do legal aid cases. I've even written to them, but these cases never come to me. They go to the very junior barristers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So this is one way, perhaps. Okay, pro bono cases. Another way also to do it is that to establish the system of chambers, so that even if a junior barrister from a set of chambers were to be retained, at least you would have the comfort that that barrister is not operating as a one-man show. He's not operating in solo. He has behind him a whole setup where he's being counseled. He's being actually set on the right track. So I believe that these are things to be explored.
On this point, you have campaigned in the past for cases of the Supreme Court to be broadcast to the public. Is that
Indeed.
still a take that you still support?
Very much so. Very much so. You know, I've been waging a lot of battles ever since I've come back. In the article that I wrote yesterday on Raymond Juniaville, I, recounted the experience where I had fought against the seating position of the then Crown Law Office, known as the Parquet, to bring them to the ground next to the private bar, because they were perched high up next to the judges. And I was told, but look, this is a French vestige that we cannot do away with. This is part of our history. But, I've been going on and on like Don Quixote, on, and I've been rebuked, I've been criticized, but at long last, the 2005 government, took on board my suggestion, and the seating arrangement was done away with. Likewise, I'm the first one and only one to have actually campaigned for live coverage of Supreme Court cases, not in trial cases, no, because then you'd have questions of privacy, witnesses, and so on. But I'm talking about constitutional cases or matters of great general public importance, where the evidence is not really contested, but you're arguing on the basis, you're submitting on the basis of agreed facts.
Right.
Okay, and the issue is rather one of interpretation of the law. See, as is the case in the UK.
Yes.
See? So hopefully I'll live to see that happen.
What do you think? What do you think is the roadblock? Do you think I'm almost nervous to say the word? Is it more political, or is there something more?
Yeah, no, I believe that this is a matter for the Supreme Court to decide.
Right.
It is for the judges to decide. This is not a political matter, really. It's essentially a judicial matter. No, the executive would have no say. I mean, it's the executive would not even have a say in the matter. I would go as far as saying that. I would even venture to say that even the law would not have to be amended to cater for that. That would be an administrative matter, which is within the sole purview of the judiciary.
Right.
For instance, when they created the family court, the commercial division court, at those times, the law was not amended.
It was not amended.
Although subsequently they amended the law so as to bring it within a more, regulatory framework. That was it. But the time that these were set up, these instituted, the law had not been amended.
Is there a law you would like to change?
Many laws.
The most pertinent one that you would like to change, or that you feel is quite close to your heart?
You know, I have a soft spot for constitutional matters. I would, recommend, and also I've been, fighting. That's one another, cheval de bataille, on which I've been fighting, is that the law becomes more accessible to the citizen. For instance, if you enter constitutional redress case to vindicate your rights, the time limit is 3 months only.
Only, wow. Mm-hmm.
You see, this is very oppressive. I'm of the view that this should be extended to at least 2 years. Why do I say 2 years? Because this is the time limit that a citizen has to sue the state. If you have any case that you wish to enter a civil claim against the state, any wrongdoing on their part, the prescriptive period is of 2 years. So I would say that it should be aligned at least with that, firstly. Secondly, I would also say that in this respect, the citizen should not be liable for cost, because the cost can be rather exorbitant. And thirdly, that they should be granted access to legal aid and to the senior-most barristers. For me, this would be a very strong signal that would be sent by the government and the judiciary to the citizen that, look, now you're all equal. Nobody can claim that, well, there is a justice there, or that there's access to justice. This is what we're talking about here. It's not actually, once you have had access, what kind of representation you're being afforded, but this is more access to justice. For me, this would be very symbolical.
Yes.
This would be highly symbolical, and it would be actually a major comfort to the lay citizen who would know that, when it comes to his sacrosanct rights, namely his constitutional rights, he would be fully protected.
Right. That's a very interesting perspective. And you being in the field, it's interesting to see as well what would actually matter to you if you were to see some changes. You're one of the best barristers in the country, and I speak on behalf of many. Humble you will say no.
I will let you speak alone on that.
Exactly. I hold that view. It is said that he or she who is a good barrister cannot not take two sides. We've all watched Bollywood movies, Hollywood movies. My favorite one is Erin Brockovich, where you've got the legal spin there. I do sometimes wonder, as a barrister, when you're defending someone, right? You've got you're defending a case. To what extent your personal view plays in? Because earlier you mentioned the cost of getting access or having access to one of the best lawyers. As much as it is about defending a particular client, a particular defendant, to what extent does your personal view come in? And I am curious to know if in the past you've had any cases where you may have changed your view throughout the course of pleading for the defendant, but you had to hold it back because you're obviously representing the client.
We are humans. So let me say that from the very start, is that we do have how much we should not, or have how much we hold back. We do hold views about the cause we are defending, about the client's, good faith or guilt, as the case may be. But on the other hand, we have to actually raise above that. Because you see, the day that we allow ourselves to have our mind shrouded by such mental, moral, it could be religious, and I could go on and on,
emotions,
or political, emotional considerations, then I would be disqualified to practice or to appear in that particular case. No, well, it goes without saying. I think you're absolutely right. We do hold views. But thankfully, a case is not about the client's prevarications or his, motive and so on. A case is about hard facts. So this is the first thing that we do. We examine those facts. Okay. We make a comparative analysis between the other side, for a criminal case, for the prosecution's case, and the defense case, my client's case. I make a comparative analysis. Then I make a synthesis of those two, and I extract what can be extracted in terms of, is that sufficient to advise my client rather to plead not guilty? Or should I advise him to plead guilty? This is what many people don't realize. Many of my clients and my colleagues' clients also, we advise our clients to plead guilty. We don't, enter a plea of not guilty in all the cases.
Right.
So this is our primordial role, to come to terms with the reality. This is also part of our role, and to put forward to the court, should our clients plead guilty, to bring forth extenuating circumstances so as to lessen or to actually negate his sentence. So this is one thing. But in case he decides to plead not guilty, I'm talking about a criminal case, of course, then obviously it's a very taut line on which normally you're walking on, because the facts are actually well defined. And you must at all times ensure that it is your client's version that is put forward. You should not invent a defense.
Right.
You should not give ideas to your client. There was one barrister who was actually disbarred for that, because he was, in fact, accused of having, given an alibi to his client. So you must be very careful as to that. Then when it comes to civil and commercial cases, again, you must look at the best interest of your client in terms of deciding, is it worth dragging the case for that long? Because cases before the Supreme Court may take years, or actually advising him on a settlement where he would get, if not everything, at least a substantial part, much earlier on. So these are value judgments that you have to be making at all times, and that you must be in a position to make a continuous assessment as the case is unfolding, and take a fresh view if need be as we go along. But of course, subject to you always having your client at par with you. You do not take a decision, in the abstract. You must always involve your client. You not go and make a deal behind your client's back.
And speaking of the cases unfolding, how do you navigate gray areas, especially when you are defending high-stake cases? I suppose at some point you come to a crossroad where there are certain gray areas. How do you navigate those?
Well, when you say high-profile cases, it's a big pressure. We are, again, human. Matter which is, subject to the public glare, to, high publicity, because the outcome may mean that your client is going to lose his employment. Mean your client might actually end up in a custodial sentence. Your client may be subject, maybe to, or in a civil case, to a liability of, millions of rupees. So that is a very heavy burden on our shoulder. Let's start by this.
Right.
But obviously, we must yet again, to come back to, you remember you asked me the question earlier, how do I feel about judging my client? So equally, this is another matter which you must be able to actually make abstraction of. See? Because if you start actually having in the forefront of your mind only the consequences, the negative consequences, that is going also to paralyze your mind, and actually limit your capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So, therefore, to come back to those gray areas, this is where you need all your serenity, all your actually sense of discernment, to be able to say, well, now we are in a gray area, now we must revisit our original position, because that may evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you must actually discuss with, not only with your client. There's one thing I must also tell you, one of your earlier questions that has evolved. It's that now it is essentially teamwork. When I started practicing 41 years ago, I was alone. For quite a few number of years, I practiced as a sole practitioner barrister. But now I've got chambers, I've got 5 or 6 barristers, chambers. And as much as possible, we discuss. As much as possible. And I've also got the pupils. I involve everyone. And you'd be surprised at how my perception of things may actually be revisited thanks to their input.
Right.
And how through this brainstorming you can see other sides that you may not have actually perceived. So this is very important, to actually put down on paper, not in the pros and the cons, not in those 2 versions that I told you about, but those gray areas. And that comes from not only studying and analyzing very hard, but through discussions, through logic. I must tell you that many times, I've had brilliant ideas from very junior barristers, or even from pupils. Speaking of which, one of my pupils is now a judge. And at the time that he was there, I must tell you that he actually assisted me in a case where he was instrumental in bringing forth, novel points. You see? So,
hopefully he's listening to you, or hopefully he gets to watch this, he or she. I think you said it's a he.
But I did when I, rested my submissions before the full bench of the court. I did turn to him and tell the judges that he has, in fact, had a great contribution in the written submissions, for which the Supreme Court, in fact, wrote a whole concluding chapter, the standard that we had put there. So this was also, une fleur qu'on lui avait faite.
All right.
Voilà.
Sanjay, what has been one or a few of the cases that have really stayed with you? You've practiced for so many years, you've had so many cases come along your way. Is there a particular case that has stayed with you, one or more? To the extent that obviously you can talk about it. I'm sure you have some NDAs around it.
Well, there is the most recent one. Let's start by the most recent one. Is the Eco-Sud case. This, as you know, is a case where Eco-Sud, which is an NGO militating for the environment, had actually entered an objection against the development of a major project, residential hotel project, in the southeast of the island at Blue Bay, which is next to the Blue Bay Marine Park. And they were told by the Environment Appeal Tribunal, ELAT, Land Appeal Tribunal, that they did not have locus standi. Okay. So there is a colleague of mine, Anne-Sophie Julienne, who came and retained my services. She said, Sanjay, I know that you are actually a specialist in public law and constitutional law, and that you would actually be the one, I believe, to be able to assist me in this matter. I said, okay, we took up the challenge. I argued the case before the Supreme Court, and we won. So that was quite a major victory. But immediately after, the Ministry of Environment appealed against this judgment, to the Privy Council. So again, we went to the Privy Council, and this time the matter was actually led by a British Casey. And the issue before that case was very simple. I mean, if it is not an NGO like Eco-Sud, which has the know-how, the experience, and the specific expertise in that particular area of mangroves and of, underground water resources and so on, how that could be affected environmentally by way of pollution, by way of the development and so on. If Eco-Sud could not, but who, if not Eco-Sud, could speak for the mangroves?
Right.
So the issue was very simple. Who speaks for the mangroves? The issue was as simple as that. We needed to go all the way to the Privy Council to be told that, yes, nobody can speak for the mangroves, except in the specific circumstances of this case, Eco-Sud. So we won the case before the Privy Council. So for me, this was a major breakthrough.
It's like finding the hook, literally.
Exactly. This was a major breakthrough, because imagine that the Supreme Court had not found in favor of Eco-Sud. Imagine Eco-Sud did not have, the means to actually gather the funds and so on to also go to the Privy Council. So as at today, that project would have gone on. The project has gone on, but in a very limited fashion as compared to its original planning, permission that it had obtained. So just imagine what our small island, with its limited resources and natural resources for that, would have endured.
Right.
See, so to me, this is really a case, a legacy, if you wish, for posterity, because now it has established that, look, hands off the environment and let those who know about this subject come forward and enlighten the tribunals and the courts. And Eco-Sud was one of them. And I'm sure that there are many such organizations that could. That was one case. The other case, if you wish, was the case of Ringadu and Jugnut. This is an election petition case where for the first time ever in Mauritius, a petitioner could successfully, annul the election of an elected member on the ground of election corruption, election fraud, so to speak, on the ground of bribery. This was the ground of bribe in the sense of promising jobs, promising land to a particular community in exchange of votes. That has never been seen before in Mauritius. So that was a grand premiere. And Mr. Ashok Jugnut, who was a minister at the time that he made the promises, appealed to the Privy Council. So again, I represented him. That was the first time I appeared before the Privy Council. I've been there 5 times since. And again, I argued before 5 law lords. And that was quite a daunting experience. Imagine for the first time. That was 2008. And thankfully, again, we won the case. And it set the standard as to what was and was not permissible by a candidate during the elections, more so a candidate who belonged to government, because they had things to offer and to give in exchange of votes.
Thank you for sharing these 2 cases. Maybe changing gears a little bit, and wanted to bring 2 points in this question that I'm about to bring up. The first female chief judge, Rehana Mongli Gulbul, I think she was elected or appointed in 2021.
Indeed.
Your own daughter was called to the bar.
Yes.
Your son was also practicing law. I think he qualified as a barrister.
As a solicitor.
As a solicitor, he qualified.
In the UK, yes.
So pretty much your children have followed in your steps. I remember meeting you with my mom and dad. We were having lunch at Paradise Cove. That was years back, but I think it was probably around COVID. And you came up to us. I think my dad recognized you, or vice versa, and you brought us to your table. We started having lunch. I know, obviously, your wife, and we had a lovely chat. And we were chatting about life abroad. Sunday, your son being in the UK, when obviously with your kids pursuing law and following into your steps. But if I were to take this as a point and put that into perspective, when you think about Mauritius for the younger generation, my generation, your kids' generation, we do have a problem of brain drain. I think many of my friends are actually thinking of coming back to Mauritius. Obviously, life abroad is no longer the same. Inflation, economic crisis, immigration, you think about it, let alone taxes. What's your take on brain drain? I feel like there is a lot of untapped opportunities in Mauritius, but what's holding back people from coming back to the island? What do you think would actually get us to gravitate coming back to Mauritius?
The first thing you have to bear in mind is that to look at the evolution of, young Mauritians going to study abroad.
Mm-hmm.
In my days, the question of not returning was out of the question.
I can imagine.
Because this was home to us and this was our family. It was different values. Nor were we told that, look, if you find the opportunity there, you should go.
Mm-hmm.
That was not just on. So regardless of how hard it was, we would come back, we would make our own little niche and we would get on with it. However many years it would take before we actually bought a car, bought a house, bought a plot of land.
To make it, as they say.
To make it, you know what I mean? We took the time it took.
Mm-hmm.
Things have changed. As you said, it's a new generation.
Are we the impatient generation?
I would say yes. I would say a straight yes. What maybe took me 15, 20 years to achieve now, the younger generation. I'm not saying necessarily for my children, or
of course,
but I'm talking,
seems to be a consensus view.
Yeah. Within 5 years, they would want this to be done. Fair enough, I can understand. But what has changed also, what I've found, is that in my days and even in the next, up to the maybe late 1990s, maybe up to 2000, parents would never actually actively, aggressively telling the children, you go and get to stay there if you can. That has never been. This is something that actually breaks my heart. It actually breaks my heart. Why would you say that to someone? Let them make up their mind. And also, because of the limitations of being able to stay there and to get the, work permit and
citizenship green card and all that. Mm-hmm.
I've heard many cases where anyone get married there. You probably have heard of that
I
also.
have. Mm-hmm.
You have to. This is very serious. I believe that there is a identity crisis here. There is a desperation. So how did these people who are saying that, how have they been coping here?
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing here? So this is my first. But I'll speak of my own child, my own son.
Mm-hmm.
I've never encouraged him to be there. Nor have I also told him that now, look, since you are there now, you should. Never.
Mm-hmm.
Every time with the subject arises, I said, look, you have everything that it takes to lead a very decent life in this country. So you're most welcome whenever you feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say that he too thinks likewise.
Mm-hmm.
He just married with his wife. They both have a very open mind as to come to Mauritius.
Mm-hmm.
See? So to come back to your question, therefore, what has changed? I believe that without going into any controversy here.
Of course.
I believe that what has happened in this country for the past 10 years, there's been an erosion of values as far as institutions are concerned. I say so bluntly. I've written about it also. I take full responsibility for what I'm saying. And that has greatly influenced the young people, because I have a lot of relatives and, children of friends and so on, who I'm speaking to, and also reading on the social media, who have been put off by those declining standards and this joie de vivre that existed in Mauritius. So I feel things have changed. I'm sure you will agree with me. Things have changed for the better. There's been, since November, again, this is not a political statement I'm making, but you don't hear the same thing as you have been hearing before. Things are positive. True it is that the situation is yet to improve economically and so on. Okay, but won't engage to an economic debate, financial debate at this stage. Yeah. But this actually disincentive that existed before is not there anymore. I see many younger people coming back already, or expressing the wish to come back. So there is a change of heart already. So to answer your question, in a nutshell, yes, there has always been a brain drain. Firstly, economically, obviously this is the first thing. Secondly, it's the question of being actually, it's not economic retribution only, but retribution in terms of matching your qualifications.
Right.
That these are the two major things. Thirdly, quality of life. True, at first, the fact that you're centrally situated, be it in Europe or Australia, these are the major Eldorados to which the young ones are going, the Europe, mainly America, Canada, these are the main countries. But come a certain age where they want to settle down and so on, this is the turning point, I believe, where they realize that the quality of life would not be as attractive as it would be from the time you graduate in your early 20s up to, they say, mid-30s.
Right.
So I find that many of the young ones reaching their mid-30s, they have the tendency
They have
to come
gravitated
back.
towards coming back.
Would you agree to that?
I agree, and it's interesting that we're talking about this. Hopefully, and no one says that she's been saying that on every single podcast, but I have been talking about it with my mom and dad too.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting timing.
So hopefully we shall be seeing you soon.
And we might have a follow-up podcast. And we'll revisit this conversation.
Yeah. You can tell about your experience
exactly.
to readaptability.
That's a big question.
That is a big question. Already when I came back here after 4 years studies in the UK, it was not easy to adapt oneself to the country, to the family, and to the society, leave alone in a new profession. So at all these different strata, you had to find ways and means to...
Because you do change, your mindset changes, no matter what, leaving anywhere else. And it doesn't have to be in the UK. I'm sure if you were to take someone out of the Mauritian context, we are a small island. We've grown up with a set of values, the community, and then suddenly you find yourself in a new country having to fight for yourself and standing on your own feet. And then you come back and having to re-immerse yourself within that societal norms. It is somewhat of an experience. And I say it humbly, and I love Mauritius, but objectively, it is somewhat a question of readaptability.
So there you are a free, independent woman who you become daddy's little girl.
I'm daddy's little girl. I'm sure you can say the same thing about Sanjay now. I'm daddy's little girl.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Especially, I'm the elder twin by 5 minutes, but my twin got married, and I'm like, for some reason, I feel like the youngest child right now. I'm loving it.
In all the senses of the word. Okay.
Sanjay, what will be your parting words for the young people watching you, even for the elder generation, especially more for people of our generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs, as we say? What would be your parting words to them?
Have faith in the country. I'm a Paka Mauritian at heart.
Love this.
I've never, even the worst of situations this country has been through, never ever told a young person, look, go and find your future elsewhere. You belong here. And we need you.
Well, I take that to my heart as well, and I'll think about it. Sanjay, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this chat with you. For someone who's actually in finance, I really enjoyed talking about law, got to learn so much from you. And I think your perspective, having your own kids, but also having seen the country through different transformations, has been super insightful. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining me today.
The pleasure is mine. I've discovered myself also through this podcast.
I think you should do more of it.
With pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.